Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with Keith Myers, talking Seahawks football. We're getting ready for the Jaguars to visit Lumen Field in Seattle to take on the 2-5 Seattle Seahawks. Trevor Lawrence comes in town along with Coach Urban Meyer. Keith, what are your initial thoughts on this?
My initial thoughts are, I want to see Trevor Lawrence play. He's looked good at times this year. I mean, obviously an amazing talent, but it's just fun to actually get a chance to get a better look at these guys. Are
you more interested early to see Trevor Lawrence in this game than you are Geno Smith?
Of course I am. Is there anyone actually other than like Geno Smith and his mom actually looking forward to watching Geno Smith play?
No.
Maybe the Jaguars defensive coordinator.
Actually I am. I respect a player that's stuck around the NFL long enough, especially with the Seahawks. And I truly am pulling for him. They've had chances in 3 games to take the game at the end, and he's just not been able to do it. And I would just like to see him play well and have a great game, because it might be his last game.
Yeah, I want to see him play well. I really do. Because if he plays well, then the Seahawks do well. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I want to see him play well. I don't have any expectation that he's going to. And it's to the point where if really this is the game, right? If they lose this game, they're done. The season's over. And if they win this game, well, they kick the can down the road to after the bye and the Green Bay game, and then they can lose and the season will be over. But basically we've got to a point where we recognize the last 2 weeks, very winnable games. With Russell Wilson, they win those games like running away. And with a decent quarterback, I think they win those games. You're not winning with Geno. I think that's become plainly obvious. If you're going to lose, like if Wilson's not ready to come back against Green Bay, if you're going to lose that game, lose it while evaluating one of the younger kids.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. I don't think that they're going to go in to lose this game. They're going to go in to definitely win this game. So I don't see them playing young youth guys.
Not yet.
The board yet.
Not
yet.
So
here's the deal too. Russell Wilson doesn't get hurt. Likely the Seahawks go 4-3, could even be 5-2, possibly. I'm just saying, right? Yet here we are. We're talking about Geno Smith coming in. Everything kind of comes off the rails a little bit, and we're jettisoning the coaching staff. Quite a few of the players. We're thinking about a reboot, if not a complete rebuild. All that kind of stuff. So.
At some point, you have to take advantage of the bad season.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have a first-round pick, and so
it doesn't matter if you have. There's more than one player.
What advantage is there, Keith, to creating a situation other than evaluating younger players, which we will probably end up doing a little bit anyway? Beyond that, though, there's no incentive to lose in the NFL.
No, there isn't. But you need to be able to evaluate your young players, the guys that haven't gotten on the field yet and likely aren't going to unless you insert them intentionally, because you need to find out where they're at. And
okay, let's take a look at the roster. Who are we talking about?
You need to give them tape of themselves to study during the offseason. That's part of them getting better. And if you don't play, they simply don't take advantage of this rookie year. Now, who are we talking about? Are we talking
about Jacob Eason, Danny Etling? Are we talking about, maybe DJ Dallas as the feature back?
We're talking about Jake Luton. We're talking about Jake Luton if they have to go another game without after this one, not the Jaguars game because this is winnable. But if they have to go more games without Wilson, I'm talking about Luton at quarterback, not the other two guys that aren't NFL players. We're talking about Jake Curran at right tackle.
Colby Parkinson.
Shepley at center. We're talking about the rookie left tackle. Maybe they start him at right tackle and
Forsyth.
see if he can play over there. Yeah, Stone Forsyth. Getting him out there. And like I said, you may not be at left tackle because you're not benching Brown, especially if Wilson is playing. You want to keep Wilson, from getting hurt again. So you play your left tackle, but you can make a change at right tackle. I mean, it's not like either of the right tackles that the Seahawks have run out there this year have played well. And so
I think you end up getting into this situation anyway, even if you win this game, because what happens, even if Russ comes back after the bye, you face the Green Bay Packers away, and then you face the Arizona Cardinals at home, which are right now leading the league. And so you could, even with Russ, you could, and based on the way that we played before Russ went out, you could be 3-7.
Yeah.
So other than just looking at the quarterbacks, you could really kind of bring a whole bunch of guys in. And on the defensive side of the ball too, you give Robinson an opportunity to get a lot more snaps over, Kerry Hyder maybe.
Yeah, Robinson. Well, they get Taylor back this week from his injury, so you're going to get him back in there. You give Robinson a chance to play more.
Right. What do you do with a guy like LJ Collier, Keith? Do you try to get rid of him? I don't want to say get rid. Do you want to trade him at the trade deadline and just be done with it, or do you want to wait until the offseason?
If somebody's willing to give you something for him now, I would trade him. He's kind of shown he doesn't have a future in Seattle, in that he can't get on the field at all. I mean, he's a healthy scratch
on a poor roster.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot. There's a lot of bodies at defensive end, but he's the one that's being chosen to be at the healthy scratch. Not a guy like Mayoa, not Rasheem Green, not it's been Collier over and over again. And not only that, but they've given all of his snaps at 3-tech away as well, right? Robert Kimdichie is now not starting, but he's the rotational 3-tech for Collier's not getting any snaps. Do you keep him around in case somebody gets hurt and then he can pick up some snaps here and there? I guess. But if someone's willing to offer you something at the trade deadline for him, take it. You're not giving up anything and you're getting something in return. So I would.
Interesting. So, one thing we didn't mention last show is that Blair's gone now.
Yep.
Ended up fracturing or breaking, whatever you want to call it, his kneecap, patellar kneecap, and is out for the season after surgery. So that's a tough break for the young kid, because you really would want to have him in this list as well as somebody you'd like to see a lot more of and evaluate what you've got.
Well, I'd want to see more of him, even if they were winning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If this team was 5-2 right now, I'd still want to see more of Blair. I want to get him. The defense has been at its best when you've got Blair and Diggs on the back end and you're allowing Jamal Adams to play up near the box. As you have three safeties, you go the big nickel. That's been the best configuration for this defense. And well, now you don't have that. Now you've got Ugo Amadi, he's a slot corner. It's a different alignment. And so now if you're going to bring him in, you might be pulling Jamal Adams off the line and sending him back more. And that's not, that's not a thing that I think is good for this defense. So
how about some of the guys that are on the practice squad? I know that there's probably a couple that I'd like to see. Maybe a guy like Cody Thompson gets a chance to come up. Maybe Cade Johnson, a guy that they had an undrafted wide receiver, highly thought everyone was going to draft him and ended up going undrafted. Pierre-Olivier Lestage is still sitting there. A guy like Phil Haynes is on our practice squad. He didn't come up when Lewis was injured. That's kind of telling. Anyway, I mean, there's a few guys.
Yeah,
not a lot. There's not a lot.
There is not. That's what I mean is like, go ahead. This isn't a situation where you're just wholesale playing young guys and tanking. This is like, let's get a few guys some spot minutes here and there, so that way you can get a better evaluation of them, and it speeds their progression and development.
I've been curious as to why we haven't heard anything at all about Dakota Shepley, just because you were kind of thinking highly of him as he came in. And of course, he came into the regular roster because we picked him off. Mm-hmm. And so he's still sitting there, but Ethan Posick looks like he might get the start this week over Kyle Fuller. Thank goodness.
Well, thank goodness, because Fuller has been so bad.
He's just been a turnstile.
But it's not like Ethan Posick. I mean, Ethan Posick started last year pretty good, but he was just getting, he just lacks the physical strength, right? Yeah, I mean, he wasn't great at any point, and as the season wore on, he got worse. So it's not like they're bringing in a guy that's going to be this massive improvement. It should be a slight improvement, and it's hard to be worse than Fuller's been. But yeah, I mean, it's not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, we'll continue to have this conversation. I think it's a good conversation to have, especially if Russ ends up having to drop 2 games to, the Packers and the Cardinals. Who knows what's going to happen, though? Team could catch fire. The defense has actually been playing better. I think they're ranked first in the NFL since week 4 in red zone or third down plays against them, which is good news because they're getting off the field more, but they've played poorer offenses. Yeah. So you got to take it with a grain of salt.
And in this last game, they actually did really well on third down. The problem was that New Orleans wasn't against going forward on 4th and 1. And they just kept quarterback sneaking it in, for a first down, and they were able to string that one long touchdown drive together by completing, 2 4th down conversions that way. And that the defense stopped them on third down, but still didn't get off the field, which is unfortunate.
So let's talk about the Jaguars for a little bit. Coming into town, they've won their last game, but otherwise are just 1-5 against losses against the Texans, Broncos, Cardinals, Bengals, Titans. Those are some pretty decent teams, actually.
Not the Texans.
Not the Texans. They did lose that game as an opener, but they did win against the Dolphins. They look pretty good, but the Dolphins are really pretty bad this year.
The Dolphins are bad.
Trevor Lawrence has got a 60% completion percentage, 1,400 yards, 7 TDs, 8 interceptions with a rating of 75.5. I noticed when I watched the film from Jacksonville, overall, his wide receivers are really dropping a lot of balls. Like he's putting it in the hands of a lot of wide receivers, and they're just not. Anyway, so he's getting a lot of pressure. So the offensive line there is kind of poor. The whole roster's fairly weak, but so is ours. That's basically it. But he's getting a lot of pressures. But Trevor Lawrence is an expert at moving around a little bit in the pocket and throwing on the run and throwing with balance and accurate. And that's kind of what I saw out of him. And it doesn't show up on his rating, or he has a few interceptions and so forth, but he's willing to take a little bit of chances. Yeah, like you said, down the field. He's got a couple wide receivers, and then that's about it on their offense. Marvin Jones, he's got 350 yards, 3 TDs. Chenault Jr., 26 receptions, 300 yards, no touchdowns. On the defensive side, they're going to give up a ton of yards and points if Seattle can execute and finish and score touchdowns as opposed to kick field goals. And we haven't even been good at that lately.
Well, I mean, the weather and the conditions were terrible.
Come on.
The balls were
it wasn't raining for 3 quarters.
No, but do you see the wind? The ball, they weren't even flying. None of the kicks flew in straight lines. They were all over the place. So it's whatever. It is what it is.
So,
but I was going to say, as far as the Jaguars, you're like, they're going to give up a lot of yards. I'm like, to this offense?
well, what's the plan, Keith? Like, what's the winning formula in this game if Seattle is going to take this thing? And they should. They should. The Seattle Seahawks are a better team than the Jacksonville Jaguars with Smith at quarterback.
Yes, even with Geno at quarterback, they're a better team. They have to block. They have to block someone. That would help. You can't give up 5 sacks a game like they have been the last couple of weeks with Geno and expect to.
And a lot of those aren't on Geno.
No, he's getting killed before he even gets to the top of his drop.
Exactly.
So, no, the line's it's been terrible, and so getting some blocking would help, but they've got to get the ball into the hands of their playmakers, right?
Shane Waldron came out today and said that Geno needs to really get the ball out quick. He's holding the ball too long. He's hesitating and not making good enough decisions. I mean, that's basically what he said. He wasn't throwing him under the bus, but between the lines, you could see that that's kind of what was being said. So what do you think about that?
Well, he's not wrong. But part of it is the blocking, because he's getting hit before he even hits the top of his drop, right? But the other part of it is he's not making the read that, hey, this guy's coming. He's going to be unblocked. I've got to shorten my drop and get the ball out before he gets here. Geno's not making that read either. And so it's both. Basically, no one is playing well, between the offensive line and Geno, except for, I'd say, Jackson's played well. But the rest of the line. How do you think
the offensive coordinator's doing?
I think it's hard to evaluate.
It is hard to evaluate, but here's the telling thing for me, Keith. We haven't seen a lot of the things that Shane Waldron himself said that he was going to implement and bring to the team, and he was excited about it. And we're talking timing, we're talking quick throws, a pace to the offense that was kind of things in the middle, setting up screens properly, that we still don't seem to be able to do as a team. I don't honestly, I just don't get it. I really don't.
Well, I think part of it is that there's a lot of different things here. One, what are you expecting to see with Geno Smith at quarterback? He can't complete a pass down the field. Everything is super short or incomplete. They're not able to run the ball, effectively for stretches. And so there's just nothing working. And I can't evaluate a coordinator and what he wants to do when his best two, or probably 2 out of his best 3 pieces, are not even available. He's got no Chris Carson, and the running game's built around his skill set, and he's got no Russell Wilson. And so when Wilson was in there, they were the best offense in the NFL. Their yards per play, their points per drive were both tops in the NFL. So I would say it was working really well, even though the line was playing really poorly. The problems were on the other side of the ball. Then Wilson gets hurt, and now nothing works. Well, that shows you how bad Geno's been, because the things that were working before aren't working now. Now, part of it is, both Pete and Waldron came out before Wilson got hurt and was like, he's got to take what's there, because there's been times when the offense has been
and they've increased their running percentage as well on first and second down as well. So it's put Geno in some longer.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, there were times when it was Wilson when the offensive design was fine. Wilson chose not to take the easy completion for 6 yards and instead chose to
Yes.
hold the ball
Yeah,
and wait
right.
and give DK a chance to get deep for a 40-yard pass, because that's what Wilson does, right? He extends plays and he goes for those big plays, and he's not afraid to take those chances.
You're right. And I was kind of looking forward to actually Geno Smith coming in and be able to execute the offense the way that it's kind of designed without taking that extra time and so forth. And we still haven't even been able to do that. We haven't been able to evaluate Shane Waldron in an offense where it's neutral. Like, we have a neutral quarterback that's not Russell Wilson. It's just the offensive line is so bad now that it's you can't. There's nothing that seems to be working. It's never easy. It always seems like the other team, whoever we're facing, seems to their first drive or second drive, both drives seem to be just so easy. They pick up first downs and so forth. Not lately. I think we've generated some punts quite frequently, but it seems like the Seahawks, though, are just struggling. It's a slog to get first downs, consecutive drives going, anything at all that resembles any smooth operating out of the offense. And I just thought that's what I'd be seeing this year.
Well, I mean, we also thought the offensive line was going to be better. We thought Jackson coming in was going to make a big improvement, because you took out the weakest link by far of the offensive line from last year, and you replaced it with a genuine strength. The problem is that Dwayne Brown's regressed a little bit with age.
And we didn't upgrade center.
We didn't upgrade center, and we didn't upgrade right tackle. And both Abuhi and Shell haven't been good.
Yeah.
So then that's part of the reason why when we started this discussion,
not in there.
He was a little bit, but I want to see Jake Curran. Or Stone Forsythe. Bring in one of them. Shell's been pretty bad, so we might as well play one of the.
I would probably go with Curran over there on the right side and just see what we've got at right tackle, because we need to make that decision. We're going to have to make that decision. Shell's not under contract next year. Brown's not under contract.
That's why, and that's part of the reason why I was saying Forsythe, is because Curran is not a left tackle. He's a right tackle, and that's the extent of where he's going to go. Forsythe can play on both sides. So if you bring in Forsythe and you evaluate him and you go, wow, this kid's pretty good, then you can go into next year with being like, all right, so we're going to pencil him in at left tackle and then bring in a vet just in case, who's going to be our swing tackle most likely. But if we need him, he can fill in that spot. If he goes out there and he plays and you're like, yeah, he is just not there, then you have to go get a new left tackle. You got to trade for one. You got to sign a free agent. You got to do something.
I think we're there. I think we're starting to see the diminishing returns now on Dwayne Brown. Love Dwayne Brown. Great guy. But I just don't see he's going to be there next year.
No, and the team went out of its way to not tie themselves to Brown long term.
And I think that was wise.
Yes, and as painful as it was to kind of go through and have him miss the preseason and all of that, we're seeing the age. He's still a good player, but he's not the Pro Bowl guy that they had. He's aging. And so they do need a new left tackle a year from now. Is Stone Forsythe that guy? That's what we don't know. The team doesn't know. And at some point this year, they need to find that out.
Keith. It seems like they do. Otherwise, you're going to assume that they didn't figure that out on purpose, and that they are uncomfortable with Stone Forsythe, and they are going to address that in the offseason. That would be one of the things that you would expect on your short list of top 5 things you need to take care of in the offseason would be left tackle.
But I don't think I wouldn't make that assumption, because of the way that Pete Carroll does this. He is going to run out the guy that gives him the best chance to win.
They certainly see what's
week.
going on in practice that we don't get a chance to see. But nonetheless, game is game, practice is practice. So, okay. So what is your strategy if you're the Seattle Seahawks in this game? How are you taking advantage of personnel matchups?
So what I'm doing in this matchup is I'm taking advantage of the fact that the Jaguars defense isn't particularly good. And so I am bringing Alex Collins in, and he's going to be the centerpiece of my game plan. I'm going to run the ball and really make them commit to coming up to take on the run. And then I am play action and getting the ball to my two big receivers and getting them the ball quickly, not waiting for them to get 40 yards downfield because Gino's not going to complete that pass. But
you know that when we run play action, Keith, we ranked 4th in the NFL on play action EPA, and we only run play action, ranked 20th in the NFL. So what's the problem with that?
I think the problem with it is that without...
And it's been a couple of years in a row, too. It's not just Shane Waldron.
I know. I think there's so many things that were wrong with the offensive design and the way it was called under Schottenheimer. I'm not going to get into that because that's just an entirely different thing. But this year, what I've seen is there were a couple of games where the Seahawks just went away from the run entirely, which means they also went away from play action entirely. Because if they're not going to run the ball, or
they don't sustain drives, it's like starting over every time. Yeah,
play action's not going to do much if the other teams don't care if you're going to run it, because you know what I mean. So if they come up and they want you to run, they're covering the pass on just exclusively. They want you to run. They're not going to be biting on anything. It's not going to be creating anything. And I think that's what was happening earlier.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to evaluate with Geno Smith in there too. I hear you on that. But one of the other things that frustrates me as well is that Shane Waldron came in and said, listen, we're going to get away from the fact that we do only really one thing well in the offense, and that's try to throw the deep ball. We're going to do everything well. So if teams try to take away our run, we're going to be able to take advantage of that. We're going to take advantage of what teams are going to give us. And I just haven't seen that this year.
Well, I mean,
and is that part of it? Is that just the quarterback not making the right decisions?
There's some of that,
including Russell Wilson.
Yes, including, because there were times when 3rd and 1, just get the yard, and Wilson's throwing the fade to Metcalf down the sidelines, 30 yards. That's a low percentage play. Now he's got the matchup that he wants. It's 1-on-1 over there, and you have to take that shot. But it's the wrong. Yeah, it's the wrong time to take that shot. It's 3rd and 1. Get the first down. And so it's kind of a down in distance like situation for them. And then with Geno in there, it's not. They don't do anything well because Geno doesn't do anything well. So that becomes the bigger problem.
So Chris Sims and Mike Florio were talking on their show today, and Chris Sims said that the Jacksonville Jaguars have a better roster than the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, I mean, it's Florio and his show. So you were talking about the biggest.
So I'm flaming right now. Yeah.
The biggest hot take stupidity that's not named Skip Bayless out there. I literally don't care what they said, and it's not. It's entirely not.
Is there anybody on their roster that intimidates you at all?
I
just don't have a lot.
Not on the defensive side of the ball.
Shaquille Griffin's coming back.
Okay,
I'm just letting you know. It's a name out there that some fans like and will be looking forward to.
Well, actually, and the thing is, if Quill Griffin was on Seattle's roster, it would be improved, right? They would be better at cornerback. He is better than Sidney Jones. Yeah. I think we can all kind of agree on that.
Yeah, it was disappointing. So the two areas that we really needed to upgrade this year, they drafted a rookie who has barely played so far, and they passed on Creed Humphrey at center.
Yeah, but Creed Humphrey's been bad.
What? No. He's the highest rated rookie in the NFL.
Says who? Pro Football Focus?
Wow.
Because everyone. No,
everyone's talking about Creed Humphrey as being like the potential rookie of the year.
Did you watch him play the first 3 weeks? He was like Jermaine Ifedi bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Granted, I haven't watched him since the last 3 weeks, but those first 3 weeks were ugly.
I'm just ugly. You know what I'm saying, dude. He landed in our lap, and we should have took him.
Yep.
Okay. What else? So, okay, let's just go with predictions. Prediction time. What do you got, Keith?
27-13 Seattle.
I've got them at 23-17. I'd love to be able to put some points up on this team, but I don't believe in the offense right now, and I just have to see it. If it comes, great.
The reason why I said that many points had nothing to do with Geno Smith.
You think there's going to be a turnover?
I think there's going to be a turnover, which is going to give him a short field, and I think that we saw it in this last game. We saw DK Metcalf just kill someone and dance on his corpse as he went down the sidelines for a long touchdown. We're going to see more of that. You're going to see Alex Collins kind of break out a little bit and probably go for 120 because I don't see them stopping the run very well. And you're also going to get a few plays where between Lockett or Metcalf, one of them is going to get the ball and then make someone miss and get a pile of yards. And they're not going to sustain drives because Geno's not completing passes on third down at a rate that's good enough. But they're going to hit a couple big plays because they've got playmakers. And if you can get them, if you can get DK Metcalf the ball on a 3-yard slant, he can still take it 60 yards. If he's not getting tackled right when he gets the ball, he can still take it to the house. He's that good. And at some point, we're going to start seeing more of that. And this is the defense that you can do that to.
It seems like Lockett hasn't been involved in the last few weeks as well. It'd be nice to really get him going.
Well, it's because none of the receivers were involved. At one point in the this
is
last
that a
game,
bad formula right now that the Seahawks have with Geno Smith? They've been in every game that Geno Smith has started and lost them all in the last.
That's
possession.
A terrible formula because he isn't Russell Wilson. He's not going to lead that drive at the end of the game.
Just so you know, Florio said the exact same thing. That the formula that the Seahawks have right now with waiting until the last drive with a close score is just horrible for this team right now. And I agree.
It's dumb. It's kind of been dumb all along. I mean, Wilson's been good enough to make it work most of the time, but why? Why are you intentionally taking the air out of the offense
your team
and quote unquote keeping it close? If you've had a chance to step on someone's neck in this league, you do it. And under Pete Carroll, they haven't. They haven't just gone for the jugular. And I think that's been a mistake because you can put teams away.
I agree.
And they don't.
I agree. Pete has this long-standing formula, probably a couple different formulas that he's got where, you rush a certain amount of times compared to how many, your run-pass ratio needs to be just right. And, your score equation needs to be such and such. And the winning percentage goes up, to 70% win percentage if you attain those different criteria. And that's kind of his thing. And he's been that. And he's actually had a lot of success using that.
He has.
But it requires a certain player of a certain caliber to execute those things. A, you've got to have a really stellar defense. B, you've got to have a franchise quarterback. It doesn't have to be Russell Wilson necessarily, but you have to have let's just say a top 10 quarterback that's able to execute those sorts of things properly in order for that to happen. And Geno Smith is not that guy. We don't have the defense.
The thing about that formula is like, you have to run the ball so many times. That doesn't mean you have to run that ball early in the game.
Yeah.
Go get yourself a lead and then run it down their throat when you're running out the clock. I mean,
it was interesting that they adopted that against the Saints because the Saints came in ranked number 5, I think, overall in rush defense. And we just said, well, we're going to run. It is one of those things where Pete just wants to dictate terms, and it's like, well, we're just going to line up. You know what we're going to do. They know what we're going to do, and we know what we're going to do, and we're just going to go do it. And if you can stop us, great. If not, we're going to win the game. We just don't have those rosters anymore to be able to do that.
That worked in 2013 because the defense we could just tell
all-time
them
defense.
We're playing cover 3 on every single down.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Because that's essentially what they did. They ran essentially the same play over and over and over again, but they were so good at it and so their talent level was so much greater than
I think it was just Earl Thomas, right?
Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman.
Right.
I mean, so they could go out and just it didn't matter. The other team knew they were running cover 3, and they still couldn't execute against it. It was that good. And the offense there was a lot of that too. There was like there's a lot of times everyone knew they're running it to Marshawn. You know it's coming. Everyone's keying on it, and it didn't matter because, even if you got past a block, Marshawn was going to bounce off someone and get upfield anyway. And they were good enough to do that.
All right.
But Alex Collins isn't Marshawn, and the defense is
and we don't have the
nothing.
offensive line, et cetera. So, so both of us predicted that we're going to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
What if we're wrong?
If we're wrong, the season's officially over, and at 2-6
with 2 daunting games.
With 2 daunting games ahead, and with losses to bad teams like Pittsburgh and Jacksonville in there, you're not making the playoffs. You're not going anywhere. It's time to start evaluating players. Go ahead and trade Dwayne Brown. He's not going to be back next year anyway. And get the kids out there.
Interesting. Okay. We'll talk about that. Let's get through this game. I want the win. I do
too.
It's fun to win. It gives Russell Wilson some incentive to come back after the bye.
They have to win this game.
Yeah.
Have to.
And if they, it's not unheard of that a team goes on a run, and Seahawks could. I mean, they do have the talent. They just need to completely turn it around and put it all together. Defense playing a little bit better. You get Russell Wilson back. Stuff starts happening. They go 8-2.
And the schedule gets easier.
Right.
But it's got to start this week. They have to win this game. If they lose this game and go drop to 2-6, I think they're done.
Quickly, what's your message to listeners that are just really doubting what you just said?
What do you mean?
Like, they've already given up. It's already done.
I honestly, I think it's already done. Like I've been saying, I said this in our past show and this one. I think the season's over right now because I don't think that a win against Jacksonville is anything to hang your hat on because they're bad.
But you have to win against Jacksonville because they are that bad. Yeah.
But you're then coming back against Green Bay and Arizona the next 2 games, and you have to win those games.
You do.
At least one of those games, but you really need both of them.
Well, if you came out of this thing 2-6 into the bye, you have to win those games. You have to run the table, basically. I think
you would have to run the table,
and maybe one loss
with the extra or wild card. You could probably get away with 1 loss. But you're still looking, 10-7. That may not make it into the playoffs, especially not when you lose the tiebreaker to New Orleans and the Vikings.
All right, let's get out of here. Let's go watch the game on Sunday. Have a good game, everyone. Enjoy. Don't sweat it too much. We still need the crowd out there, so I know everyone's trying to sell their tickets or whatever, but those that buy the tickets, go out and make some noise. Find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. I'm at NW Seahawk. The show is at Hawks Playbook. SeahawksPlaybook.com is our website. Find us on your favorite podcast app and subscribe to us on those apps and YouTube as well. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.